I mean, the book has been sort of an amazing journey, and I know you talked about it. You never set out to write a book, but it seems like it came together very organically for you. Do you look back and just wonder how this got done?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it started probably as a product of grief, honestly. And Jen had written some in her journal about it and things. And we went through a really difficult time losing some kids that we're really close to and thought that maybe we were going to adopt. And so it started that way, and it's been a product of, about 3 years now that took writing it. So it's been a long journey, and we've had a lot of help along the way, but we've enjoyed it.
Foster parenting is such a unique animal just in itself, and you guys touch on the highs and the lows and sort of the unique journey that you've taken. Your faith plays a huge part in that. Could you imagine doing this absent that? I mean, I think that's a real driving, pivotal catalyst for where you guys are right now.
So I think that's why we called the book Faith to Foster, because we see that we don't feel like we have any special gifting that got us into this. Obviously, we've learned a lot along the way, but in the beginning, our first placement was 3 kids under 4, and I don't think I'd ever changed a diaper before. We didn't really know what we were doing. And so it was our faith that got us through, and then also the community of faith, like our church people just coming around us and helping us in so many ways. So I think a lot of people have other motivations and do it without faith, but for us, I think that's been our anchor for sure.
It's 22 children now. Did you ever imagine that when you set out on this journey, that this would be sort of the path that you take?
No, and I think depending on the cases, we've had several short-term cases as well as several sibling groups. We don't have any biological children of our own, and so we are able to, our housing situation allows us to take more kids than maybe somebody with kids of their own or other kids, and so the numbers ended up adding up pretty quickly, I guess.
The most unique aspect of this for you, what has surprised you, I guess, about your journey about being foster parents? Because I know each one of the children you've had is a story and almost a chapter or a passage in your book.
I think we knew getting into it that we'd be involved in children's lives and kind of that rescuer change element, and that's been the most powerful. But I think what we didn't realize is how it opened us up to so many relationships in the community, whether it be teachers or social workers or birth parents, just to be able to live out our lives authentically in the community. I didn't expect that would be a result of fostering, and we've really enjoyed that part.
I would also say I was amazed at how many people came around and helped us and supported us. And in the book, we talk about the unity of the church, and it was the church certainly played a big role. Family played a big role. I mean, I'm from the tri-state area. Jen's parents are now in Atlanta, but she has family in Chicago. And it's incredible how, even flying down to Savannah, Georgia, or to New York, or to, Missouri, different places that we've, been, the family has supported us so well. And then our church family has just been remarkable as well, bringing strollers and meals and all kinds of things.
Just this past Christmas, we got a placement of 4 children 2 weeks before Christmas, or 3 weeks.
3
and
weeks,
so
yeah.
we were heading this way back to Carthage, and it was like, hey, Mom and Dad, by the way, we're coming with 4 children.
To me, what's amazing about your journey as foster parents is you're living a snippet of somebody's life, very important snippet, and yet sort of almost as self-sacrifice, you don't get to live out the end of it. You don't get the full range and the full scope. I know I read the book and I see how attached you are to some of these kids. How hard is it when that ends? Because that seems like, for a father like me, that's like graduation day every couple of months, and how hard that was. You're doing it over and over and over again.
I mean, honestly, it's been dreadful. There are certain children that when they leave, I feel like someone's ripping out my own body. It hurts, honestly, and we try to be real about that, but we also don't let those losses define our times with the children. And by keeping their pictures on the walls and keep sharing their memories, it helps us focus on that life that has been cultivated, that we know can't be taken back. That's a forever impact that's being made, not just, even though we just see the temporary. And that's where the trust and the faith, I think, comes back in again.
Go ahead, TJ, I'm sorry.
No, saying goodbye, I think, is one of the biggest reasons people don't get involved with foster care. And we try not to let the fear or dread of an impending separation prevent us from the good that we can do in the meantime. And these kids, if you think about it, I was just reading an article 2 or 3 days ago about several dozen kids in Texas in the last 2 months have spent the evenings in a shelter, or not a shelter, a makeshift shelter in the state's offices because there are no foster family homes. And so this is a huge need for communities all around the United States. And the book, we're asking the church really to get involved, but it's for everyone in the community. Communities need people to really step up and be foster parents and take care of some of these kids.
You touched at the beginning of the book on how high the threshold was, or how tough they made the threshold in terms of conditioning yourself to be a foster parent. Looking back retrospectively, are you glad that the threshold was that high? Did that prepare you, or is there no possible way to prepare you for all that the scope of being a foster parent entails?
I think it's good to have the high threshold for training, and I think it's a barrier to entry that is well planned, because you don't necessarily want people who are just doing it for a paycheck or just doing it to receive money as another form of welfare payment or something. And so there is a good rationale for having it high. Now, where that balance is between a tough requirement to become a foster parent versus discouraging people, that's maybe tough to define sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like through the training we learned, it was safe for us to say, yeah, we'll commit to training. We don't even know. There's a lot of people who go through training and don't ever take a placement of children, and that's okay. And the agencies are totally fine with that. They know that the training process is also for you learning and figuring out and having your questions answered. It's not like a lot of people don't show up at training being like, yes, I'm definitely going to do this and I know what I'm getting into.
You kind of touch on it in the book, but I kind of want to ask you personally. Jen, I know you meet TJ at the academy. What have you learned about him more than that, just through the process? Obviously relationships are their own animal, but what have you learned more about your husband just through this whole process of being a foster parent with him that you might not have realized about him going in when he showed up at the academy and you guys first got together and started running together, I guess?
That's a dangerous question.
That's why we're here.
Well, so first of all, we started fostering pretty much as newlyweds. I mean, within the first couple of years of our marriage, we took in placements.
That's a big jump. That's a big bite, isn't it?
Right. And I think some of that, it's helpful that we started before we had formed a lot of our patterns. It might have been harder if now, 11 years down the road, we're saying, oh, let's try this new thing. But I'd say that I didn't realize how much TJ is uncomfortable with the I don't know, like just the ambiguity. Just really in the beginning, he really wanted to know all the details of the case and how long is it going to be and wanting to go to the court. And now we're kind of at the point of being like, I don't know, we're caring for the kids, we advocate when we can, but it's more just kind of going with the flow. And I think that was definitely a learned behavior for TJ to let go of control, because so often in foster care, the answer is, I don't know, How old are these kids? I don't know. When are they going to leave? I don't know.
Detail-oriented and structured. Man, that doesn't sound like you at all, does it, TJ?
It's a little bit different than West Point or the military.
For you, with Jen, kind of the same question. What have you learned about your wife through this whole process?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've probably learned is just her love for the children and how she's been able to nurture them. And I probably don't have a 10th, maybe a 20th of the patience that Jen has. And so that's been remarkable to see. And also just, it's been really painful, the goodbyes, and seeing her grieve in a way that I would not have seen otherwise. I can't think of another endeavor, extracurricular activity, or things that we would have done that would have caused such intense grief. And so, yes, we've had a lot of lows, but we've also had a lot of highs, and so those have balanced each other out, and it's been, I really think it's defined our relationship in a new way and helped us bond in a way that we wouldn't have otherwise.
So when I last saw you 15 years ago, which I believe was laying on the carpet in Bloomington with a three-piece signal up, and I think I still have that video, there's a lot of ways, TJ, your life has changed, and they aren't surprising to me. Graduate of West Point, helicopter pilot, husband, none of those things I think are really, instructor, are really a surprise to me. If you would have told me back then in high school, remarkably candid author, that would have probably struck me as a surprise. Did you ever see that becoming a part of your persona? And do you look back and go, I can't believe I've written a book?
No, I would not have said author would have been something that I anticipated. And Jen kind of brought the idea up. I thought of it, I think at one time, I was like, it would, like, these people write books and they make millions of dollars. And I was like, how hard can it be to write a book? And then, it's taken us 3 years. And I mean, that's through grad school and things, but I don't anticipate this selling anywhere near millions of dollars of books or copies and things. And so it's been an eye-opening experience.
I don't know Jen, but I think I felt like I got to know her through the book. I know you, and there are passages that sound distinctly very TJ. Did you find it hard to be that honest and that open and you within the process of writing this book?
Yeah, and you didn't read the edited versions either. So, and
TJ,
you wonder,
you can't say that.
you wonder about future endeavors and things, and we also wonder about the kids that we've raised that we don't have contact with reading the book. And we did a signing down in Savannah, Georgia, and we had 2 foster kids that we wrote about in the book that showed up that we had not seen since they left our house. And what a joyful reunion it was. And they were really excited to be in the book. They were really happy about it. They each got a copy of the book. Their adopted family was there, and it was just what a joyful reunion that was.
Jen, this feels very labor of love for you, just reading the way you write it. I have to imagine there were some tears shed, there were some weird emotions when you were sitting down at the keyboard trying to make this happen.
Right. I think we realized there just needed to be a real life, ordinary foster parent exposure, and to make it more policy oriented or anything else just wouldn't be real. I think reading a book is a safe place to become exposed to foster care, and there aren't a lot of ways to just learn about all the questions people ask that are kind of awkward or uncomfortable, but by sharing it really openly and vulnerably, we felt like that would be the most real way to show people what's going on in every community.
It's a handbook. I mean, that's kind of what it is at the heart. It's a very heartfelt handbook, but that's what it's become. Are you surprised? Does anything surprise you in the way it's been received and the way it's sort of gone out into the world?
I think I have still felt just awkward as I'm going about it. Someone will be like, oh, I've read the book. And I'm always like, oh, you know everything about me now. Like, you know my whole life. That's definitely a strange feeling.
And I have to imagine the question, and you touched on it, I think, late in the book about people asking you, do you ever plan to have your own children? Mm-hmm. That has to be the most awkward, and you kind of touched on what that's like, but that has to be the most awkward question in the world. And it's something I think that everybody reads the book ask you or wants to ask you. Do you guys anticipate that? Do you guys feel that when you see people kind of probing you when they're at signings going, I mean, you guys feel that?
Yeah, I think it's natural when they see us serving children, to them that question comes to their mind. And especially because it comes into people's decision making so often. Oh, well, I have a 5-year-old, can I foster, and those sort of things. So we try to be honest in our answer and say, we haven't had any children yet. We'd like to, it just hasn't happened for us. And we see that that's a lot of gray areas as far as choices. But we see taking care of our neighbors that are in need as a very clear, like black and white, like, yeah, let's do that. And so we've chosen instead to direct a lot of our energies towards what's clear, a right thing to do.
I think also with that, we've been asked this, and we've wondered, like, God, why haven't we been blessed with children of our own? And I honestly believe that if we had children of our own, we wouldn't have been able to take care, or wouldn't have decided to open our home to as many kids as we have. And certainly some of the unique cases, the sibling groups would have had to have been separated or things. And so I feel like God has definitely blessed us in a way to allow us to be able to care for kids.
Your life has been a lot about callings, both with your faith and with your dedication to service. You could have gone a number of different ways with your education. You opted to go to West Point and do this a little harder than most people do it. You talk about service. Where does that come from? Because that's kind of a part of who you are. Where does that come from organically within you, TJ?
I think this area is a remarkable area of the country. And I think the people here are some of the most genuine, patriotic, loving, and caring people in the country. And so I think growing up here instilled values that have helped me, and then, your faith as well. And honestly, Going to West Point was, a financial consideration as well as an educational one. And, Al Graham was a World War II fighter pilot from Carthage here, and he had a big influence on my life early on. And, and so some of these ways of serving the country has been remarkable. I mean, it's been a two-way street. The Army's done a lot for me as well.
I'm not doing my job if I'm not asking you this, but it's 15 years later. And to this day, people who were involved with Carthage football, most notably, Tom Little, but Rick Little to some extent, every year will tell me they've got, to this day, I swear to you, they will tell me, we've got a TJ Men type, which is code word for undersized lineman who's tougher than nails. And that's always kind of been your outlier, is sort of that toughness. I mean, you've basically lived a football career where it was outside toughness personified you en route to 3 state championships. That inner toughness has always been a part of that as well. How's football served that, and how has football served you as a foster parent? Do you ever go back and rely on anything that you learned out on the gridiron that kind of serves you there?
Absolutely, and Jen will tell you that I probably rely on football stories too much because those were some great years. But I think the sports, the discipline, absolutely. The discipline I learned here on football, carried into West Point, and at West Point it magnified it and deepened it. And I think that discipline, that toughness that you learn, you get hit, you're in a boxing class, you get punched in the face at West Point and things, and you learn to bounce back. You learn that resiliency. And then, when we were in the Special Operations Aviation Regiment, like that, same thing would happen. You'd have, breakdowns, or you'd have, different things that happen on a mission that you need to persevere through and get things done. And so it's been something I think that started here in this area and has continued throughout.
Jen, how much of that strength drew you to TJ, and how much do you see that now in what you talk about as a very incredibly difficult job as a foster father?
Mm-hmm. I think TJ did a great job in the beginning and continues to lead our family and just really casting a vision for purpose, that we're not here just to live our American dream, happy life, but really to go after things that matter. And I love that, and I love following that. And I think that it provides a lot of trust that I know that I can lean on him when I'm having a really stressed day. Even if he's in Afghanistan, I know that he's still just supportive and going to be there to protect and lead our family, for sure.
Last one for you, Jen, and it's sort of interesting to me, your arc within the book and within your life, and how everything sort of changed from when you first went to West Point to where you are now. Looking back, can you see the seeds of that journey at any point kind of spring up? And did you ever envision when you showed up in New York, wow, this was what my life would become?
Yeah, I think that we are incapable of predicting what life will bring our way. And I had no intention of leaving the academy, even after my first year there. I mean, I was enjoying it. But I do see the continual thread of service and wanting to do something beyond ourselves, wanting our life to count for something. And so foster parenting just kind of became a natural fit, even though I would have never said that.
TJ, last one for you. How much, when you're around the house and you have foster children in the house, how much do you hear mom and dad in your own voice? And how much do you hear some of the things that were directed at TJ Men before you kind of became fully formed?
A lot. And it's remarkable how much like your parents you become, as I'm sure you're well aware.